Hi, Tuan. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being on the episode. This is 3D People, The Way We Work, our podcast at Alexander Daniels Global. And I'm really excited to have you in this podcast because obviously you have a very interesting journey and you have a lot of experience in the 3D printing industry. And I'm curious about all the things you went through and all the learnings that you've had so far, because I think these are really valuable insights to a lot of people who are already working in the industry, but also to those who are contemplating on moving in from another industry or just starting out their careers. So I thought we begin at the beginning. We start at the beginning. Tell us your story.
So I'm an engineer by trade, and I thought I knew a lot about technologies. But when I came to America at a reunion party, my now wife's friend happened to be the financial controller at CRO, and that was my first introduction to 3D printing. And so I often talk about 3D printing as my accidental passion because it wasn't something I pursued. I just stumbled upon it. I wasn't sure, but I did it and I fell in love with it. I had my Indiana Jones moment when I excavated the glue and powder on a Z-Corp machine and had to pull out a ball bearing. And that glue and powder in 2D printing can now print a physical object in 3 dimensions. That blew my mind. That was spring of 2003. And I said, this is going to change the world. It's going to be one of the things that will have a great impact on the world. And I want to be part of that journey to do good. So so I call it accidental passion because people also talk about passion, that you need to find your passion. I didn't look for the passion. It was something I stumbled upon, but I think I made it my passion. I commit to this passion of mine, and commitment in terms of I spent the last 17 years in 3D printing. Always worked for the manufacturer because I thought it was cooler to be with the manufacturer because you get to see under the hood what's going to be released and announced. So I thought that was exciting. So that's how I got started, by accident.
Your accidental passion. That sounds really, really nice. I think passion is something that's within us. We just have to recognize it. But of course, there are other ways of calling it, like finding it, recognizing it, whatever. But I'm a really strong believer that it's there for everyone. You just have to pay attention to it. And sometimes when you're open enough, life presents you with opportunities which just click with that thing that's already in you. And seems like this clicked in you in 2003. And you were.
I want to add to that though. So opportunities and options and luck can bring you those, but you also have to be brave to act and do it. Otherwise, I would not be surprised if many people have had opportunities or that could be life-changing, but they didn't take it. So you also have to take it.
What do you think bravery is, or how would you define brave? Because I'm asking because there's so many people who heard that. They heard that you have to be brave, but I'm not sure if people can really understand or identify bravery.
Sure, I can share with you my definition of bravery. Bravery, in my opinion, is to do the right things, make the right decision for you, for your values, for your upbringing, for your environment, for humanity, do the right thing. But I can guarantee you, doing the right thing is rarely the easy thing. It is also always the hardest thing because it means you have to make a lot of sacrifices. Within the bravery is, do you believe yourself that you will make it, that you will survive? So give you an example, especially in 3D printing, there are a lot of startups. Taking a job in a startup, there is this fear, what if it goes down? I actually went through this several times in terms of choosing a startup. Luckily, none of them have gone down, but I would say I told myself that as long as you learn, you never lose. So when you join a startup, as long as you learn, it complement your skill set, expand your network, make you a more all-round person, you will never lose. If that startup doesn't work, it doesn't matter because you would have learned something. But if you don't, then you just wasted your time.
But you also said something interesting, that you know your values. So when you say you're doing what's right and that you're living life or you're working according to your values, and that really sounds to me like you should be aware of a lot of the things that you believe in or your values. So it does take bravery, does require introspection or self-reflection, in my opinion. What do you think about it, or how are you experiencing this?
Absolutely. You need to know yourself, but people have different foundation that they start upon. To share mine, when I look back, I mentioned recently in a very personal post on LinkedIn,
I saw it.
I'm
Yeah.
a boat refugee. So when you are a boat refugee, knowing that in '79 and the following years that 1 million of people escaped by boat, I'm one of the boat people, and 40% of them died due to storm, weather, or pirates. And then get to a UN refugee camp, Pulau Pidong, outside of Malaysia, to live in a camp on an island with nothing because you sold everything to buy the ticket, to get a chance for a new life. And most people don't make it. They have to do multiple trips. And then to live in the camp with 13 acres for 5,000 people, and there are over 45,000 people living there, waiting for your future. Most people went to the US, some went to Australia, some went to France. But my hope and dream back then was we wanted to go, everybody wanted to go to America. But again, by accident, my youngest brother back then, we were 3 boys back then, he had an ear infection. He was barely 1, so he needed medical attention. And the Dane said, why don't you come to Denmark? And we're like, where's Denmark? But it turns out to be the best thing for a refugee. The Danish, Denmark gave us so much. They were so good to the refugees. And I wouldn't be who I am today without the upbringing and the openness of Denmark. So I also gave back to Denmark in terms of military service and National Guard. So I think from my personal background, when you have this hunger that you left behind something you could have been. I could have been a little Vietnamese kid on an ox on a rice paddy. I still have that image in the back of my mind. That is the life I was going to have. But because my parents chose to leave, give the kids a second chance, I have a duty not to waste that chance and really make them proud and let them make the right decision and make the most of it. So when you come from nothing, anything is possible. Then when you think about what is possible, then you got to dream big, because even if you don't get 100%, if you still get 80%, it's a hell lot more than 30%.
As I'm listening to you, I get a lot of goosebumps, and I really appreciate that you are sharing this personal story. And this is so significant. And I hear, I mean, it sounds extremely difficult. I can't really even imagine it. And I hear a lot of gratitude in your in when you're telling something, even before the podcast, when we're talking, something that is, and I notice about you that I hear so much gratitude, and it makes it so easy to communicate with you. And then I was thinking about, because you're a really good networker, and I thought about what makes you so good at networking, and I think that it's your attitude to life. This has to be something that it makes it so easy to connect with you, and you're so relatable for me. And then you are one of those people who know almost everyone in the industry. Yeah, and I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about how you build your network, or how you build these new connections, because obviously in today's world where travel restrictions are also in place, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, how will I build my relationships going forward?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I would say, to your first comment, I would say I strive very hard always to be grateful. I don't take things for granted. I'm always grateful for my experiences, for the people I meet, and I never forget where I came from, because you can never lose sight of where you came from. So with that, my accidental passion was to grow 3D printing. I think it would be good for mankind. So that's the core. That it could be a technology that could do good, and I want to help the industry to grow. 17 years ago, there was only 2 companies with a 3D printer, industrial 3D printer below 100,000. There was only Stratasys with Dimension and ZQual. But for the industry to grow, it wasn't even $1 billion back then. I think, to answer your question, I like people, and I network with people. I wasn't always an extrovert. I was actually an introvert, because I was an immigrant in Denmark with tall Vikings, right? So I didn't blend in, but I turned it around to look at myself as different, and that's okay. I just like people. I like people's story. And I think that if you are authentic and honest, then people, I think people can better relate to people. What you see is what you get. Too often today, you don't know where the other person stands, and they don't have a compass, and they waver. I hope it's very clear by now to all people that I love 3D printing, not just for the employer who pays me, but I want to promote the industry, from tissue, medical, to cement 3D printing, to build a colony on Mars, to glass 3D printing. So my posting that I share, I try to be diligent to share those. So to answer your question, when I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years, in 2006 to 8 in Hong Kong, my wife worked at Goldman Sachs, so she was working all the time. And she said, I was working for Z Corp. I was building Z Corp 3D printing channel network, and she was working hard, so I might as well do something. And I decided to be I had this crazy idea to become the most connected 3D printing professional on LinkedIn. This is early 2007. And there were less than 12 million subscribers on LinkedIn worldwide. 12 million. Yeah. And that's what is the essence of LinkedIn? It's really a online Rolodex of all the business cards, your resume actually. And the resume that can get you a job, well, that's going to touch his heart. So I believe that was going to be a very powerful platform. So I started sharing news and my journey through 3D printing. It is always minimum 5 posting a day. So I read a lot, I research a lot, and then I just choose 5 stories. And in between that, I start to share my insights, because when I joined Archem in 2014, I went into metals for the first time, metal 3D printing. I didn't know the players. I didn't know the differences amongst the different metal technology. And I Googled, is there a tutorial or white paper or anything so I can ramp up faster? Which industry should I go after? And I couldn't find anything. So this is when you're part of an industry that is so young that there's not even a white paper or background or a prime about the industry. So I start to share. And I find that by sharing, sharing is caring, but I find that so rewarding to share what I've learned and what I see. I try to dissect the industry. And when I meet a person at a trade show and that helped them to build a business, or that helped them to get into this new career change, that is something money can't buy. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that sounds, and it also sounds like a lot of work. So yeah, I think you have to be really consistent. I, for instance, I don't post that often. I also don't have so many connections. I usually do it when I have an idea that I really, really want to share. So you were saying that that you believe that 3D printing can do a lot of good. And I wanted to look also at the other side of the coin. Do you see how 3D printing can do bad?
Yes, absolutely, if it's not used correctly. But the same is true for the computer, the same is true for the internet, right? It can do good things and bad things. As long as the good things is outweighing the negative. So for instance, a bad topic about weapons that we're talking about in recent years. Well, that has been possible 30 years ago with the laser powder bed, so that's really not new. But unfortunately, in my opinion, that got too much attention that it was not good for the industry. So you would not, in my thousands of posts, see anything about guns because I do believe in that.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting topic to also to think about.
So what I do is I outshine all the good things that 3D printing can do to minimize the potential negative things that could be done.
Yeah, when I entered the 3D printing industry, which was just 3.5 years ago, I remember there was this movie called Print a Legend, and there was also a person who was trying to show the negative aspect of 3D printing, how he could take a file and print a gun and whatever. And I thought, what? You can print a gun? It was so crazy at the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's just curious, trying to venture on all the aspects of an industry, of a topic, and see what's out there. What do you think is the next big thing for additive manufacturing? And considering the fact that there are travel restrictions in place.
So before we got into travel restriction, I would say in recent years, I felt blessed that when you talk about World Economic Forum, they talk about the fourth industrial revolution, and you look at the 8 major technologies or trends that is going to emerge. And 3D printing is one of those 8, but the other pieces are automation, big data, AI, IoT in the cloud. So when you look at all those technologies, so what it means now is there will be a convergence of the weaknesses of 3D printing. So 3D printing is typically the hardware, software, materials, and then the process amongst that specific 3D printing technology. You blend that with the other ingredients of being in the cloud, is secure storage, data management virtually. That means it is true what people have been talking about for over a decade about the 3D facts. That when you move online, that with the COVID, you saw that what Carbon has done, that no matter where the Carbon machine is everywhere in the world, as long as the collaboration is online and you share the file, anybody can download it. And then you have distributed manufacturing doing good. And I think the COVID situation actually highlight the enhancement improvement that could be done to the supply chain and how 3D printing can play a role in it, but also shrinking the supply chain and actually moving it back, meaning that 3D printing can bring white collar job back to the Western world, where with automation, less manual, you don't need the cheap labor, affordable labor that you see in Asia.
Yeah, and also just reflecting on the stuff that you've said so far. What was this year, 2020, so far, a challenge that you've had in your work in 3D printing, and what helped you to overcome it?
Sure. So I joined Arevo in March. Really at
wow. Yes.
Really
okay.
Chance to get a job before there were no more jobs to get. So I'm responsible for revenue at Arevo, and I have the same challenge as anybody, as all my frenemies in 3D printing. That is,
I like that, frenemies.
how does a sales guy sell with no trade show
Yeah.
No face-to-face meeting, no seminar, no webinar, no nothing, and everything is remote. And at the same time, cold calling is dead. So,
Yep.
so if you think all that, it's like, okay, so there was starting to be, you have to be creative.
Telepathy.
You actually, Darwin said that Darwin didn't say the strongest will survive. He said the fittest will survive. But what he really meant was the adaptability to the environment. So you have to adapt. So what I start to see is online conferences, virtual conferences. So I participated in the Link 3D, Rabbit TCT, 3D native virtual conference. It's going to move online. It was virtual. And I took that opportunity to get my frenemies in the composites world to come together. And together, because we're the smaller technology group of composites squeezed between polymer and metal. And together we did a panel on how to get started with composite, what is composite, how does the different technology differ. So we were putting on our teaching hat, inspiring, teaching about where composite fit in. And I thought it was well received. So to answer your question, it has to move online. And if you're a sales guy and you're not on LinkedIn or some social media platform, you're a dinosaur. You need to move to social selling. And because people, including myself, I don't want to be sold to over the phone. I want to be able to research whatever I need to, for instance, a new 3D printing technology. And if I'm interested, I'll call you. So for the challenge I had was what most sales guys, how do you find that needle in the haystack? Where do you find that prospect? And my answer to that is the same as I had with when I joined Archem in 2014, a small Swedish startup selling electron beam part of Fusion in 2014. Is how do you find a needle in a haystack? You do that with a huge, a gargantuan magnet. I was playing with words. Gargantuan has my name in it, Tuan. But you have a huge magnet. If you have that magnet, you will find that needle in the haystack. So the magnet is the metaphor I use for you have to be visible. You have to speak at the 3D printing conferences. You have to share your experience, share your knowledge. You have to educate. What is the difference between electron beam versus laser beam? Where does it fit in? What can it be used for? So that's one of the metal 3D printing tutorial that I created and shared and been floating around on the internet since 2016. Awesome. And I've been using that at different universities where I'm a guest speaker to inspire the next engineers. But you should also do something good. So my son studied at a French immersion program, and they had STEM week, and I volunteered to come in and talk to 200 fourth grade and fifth graders about the amazing stuff that 3D printing can do and will do. And that was a lot of fun. I encourage all 3D printing professionals to volunteer at your kid's school to inspire, especially girls. We need more women in 3D printing. And I had a table filled with polymer pot, and the others are filled with metal pot because I work for a lot of 3D printing company. So I have my own museum, and the kids were playing with the skateboard and all these 3D printed trinkets, and they had a lot of fun. And I had a kick out of it when one of the kids said, "I want your job when I grow up." So long story short, the school actually got so much good feedback that they raised money and they bought a MakerBot and created their own Fab Lab inside the library in the school.
That's really nice. Would you say that one aspect of the future of additive manufacturing is education and online communication?
Yes. The industry is still a baby. Before it wasn't even $1 billion, and it just passed 10 billion. I do believe that it has a chance to go to a real industry, and from a financial point of view, it's defined by at least 100 billion. And we will get there. And it doesn't really matter if it's 20 years or 50 years. It's going to take time to get there. And definitely we need to educate more people, but more importantly, we need to attract more talent with an open mind, untainted by subtractive manufacturing technologies to learn additive. So moving things online, inspiring more people, educating people, because there's so many new technologies coming every year, every quarter. So it's kind of tough to figure it out. It kind of gets crowded and noisy. So who are the cool companies? Who are the real players? And who is just a smokescreen? So relating to that, I was starting to do some very public survey, because I was so tired of surveys where you put into a black hole and then they give you the data. I don't trust that data. But when you link it with reaction, you can see what people vote, and you can see very transparently how to dissect the numbers. And so you can use, so I would say LinkedIn has been an excellent platform to learn about 3D printing. And a lot of groups within 3D printing. And I found, what I love about our industry is people are really friendly. We have this camaraderie that we want to do good by the industry, and we are very open and welcoming to newcomers, and we need more talent. So definitely LinkedIn is a good platform if you want to get into 3D printing, to learn and join the groups and surveys.
So this is a good advice for anyone listening or watching who is contemplating on entering now the 3D printing industry, or who's now at the beginning of their career. It's good advice to follow and to focus some time and energy on this aspect.
If I can add to that.
Yeah, please.
I wish that my professor, when I was in school, my engineering degree, I wish that they gave me career advice as simple as try to choose a technology and industry that is growing. Like 2D printer versus a 3D printer. That you choose a career by purpose, that it has a chance to grow so that your career can grow with it. I wish somebody said that, because I just stumbled upon 3D printing. And another thing I would say is according to a few books, for new technology, especially disruptive technology, usually it takes about 50 years to mature. So when you look at the internet, it was actually in the early days done by universities and DARPA in the 1970s. And when you had this bubble in 2000, then the internet's been 30 years old. And now in 2020, this is actually the peak, the prime of the internet and the beginning of mobility. So if you look at 3D printing is about 35 years. So if the peak is 15 to 20 years from now, why don't you ride that wave? So being like a surfer, or if you listen to the Canadian hockey player Wayne Gretzky, you're great if you run for where the puck is. You're good, but if you are the elite, well, you're going to skate to where the puck will be. So looking at the next technology, where it's going to go next, it's definitely going to help your career progression, but you have to do your homework. And give you a little story. So when I joined a small Israeli company called Object in 2012, I had just come from 3D System, and they were doing a research in late 2012 about the metal 3D printing. Should we get into metals? And we started doing numbers crunching, look at the market size. And I was part of that team, and I tallied up about 1,000. In late 2012, there was 1,000 industrial metal 3D printer in all its history. At the same time, if you look at the Wallace report, it had about 50,000 industrial. So I'm like, wow, metals versus non-metals is barely 2%. It became 3%. What it became 4%. So the fact that it had room to grow, so I got really excited about metals, because that's where the puck will be. And I try very hard to get a job in metals, because I didn't know metals. And I talked to Magnus Rene, and due to my LinkedIn posting, he was intrigued and had coffee with me. to get to know me.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years later, he hired me when he had an open position to join him on his sales team for the US. So you have to know what you want. You have to network with your hiring employer years ahead. And when the time comes with the budget, you will get it. But it might have been my accidental passion, but my career progression has been.
It was not accidental. Yeah.
It's not accidental. So
Yeah.
when I joined ZCorp in 2013, the following year I met Avi Reichenthal at DMS trade show in Tokyo. And I made sure he knows who I am. Another thing is you need to show the world, and now especially on social, what you can do so that they think of you when they need somebody like you. And I ended up working for him 6 years later.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you very much. I think this is so underappreciated, the connecting with people and talking to them, and not reaching out to people just when you want something, that you want a job, but just get to know people, and then it can be, yes, that a few years later an opportunity comes up, and then they will connect and see, okay, this is the person that we would like to have for this role. And this is possible if you do it like you said. It's one of the good ways to achieve this. I also think it's really important. Good to have connecting with people.
So
Most important thing.
Can I add to that? I read some funny books, Who Moved My Cheese in my past.
Oh, I love that.
But the same author, Spencer Johnson, also wrote Peaks and Valley. And that was actually the inspiration I got from my career planning. Mm-hmm. So Peaks and Valley is about, people say it's easy to get a job when you have a job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Peaks and Valley talks about life will be peaks and valleys. But while you are climbing to your peak, when you have a great job, you should network, you should plan for potential, not necessarily backup network with where you might want to work in the future. So that when there's a recession and you get laid off, that you will actually bounce back faster. So your peaks and valleys will not have the same height and lows, but actually it will be a minor drop and you keep excelling. So you get a much higher peak faster by planning for your descent ahead of time.
Yeah, and it's also true for how people treat recruiters. When you're doing well, make sure you treat the recruiters also well, because you might need that connection too. You never know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the reasons why what I work on as a networker is you network with people, you spend the time, not when you need something, because it's not authentic. Yeah. So when people who can do nothing for me, but need some time and advice, I'll give it to them some time and advice. That's rewarding to me, but that's being honest. That's being authentic. Yeah. You really want to network. And when a friend needs help, you help them. I have helped several people to get a job without asking anything in return, because it's going to help feeding their children and their families. So that's doing good. So if you put up all this goodwill, not asking anything for return, hopefully something good will happen to you.
Yeah, I think it always comes back. This is what my experience is. And there's also this saying that listen to others the way you would like to be heard. And I think that's so powerful, because it speaks also to this genuine connection that you build with people. And it's rare. Like how many times did you get asked, how are you? And they don't even look at you, and they really don't want to know how you are. So it's something that comes across, you feel it, you know it. And you might not want to have anything to do with that person anymore, because it's superficial and just boring. So a lot of people come to you for advice, and you have already this many years of experience in this industry. Do you have a mentor, someone that you turn to for advice?
In my early years, I I read a lot of books, and they all say find a couple of mentors. I would say I don't have a physical person, but it's more from inspiring leaders or entrepreneurs that you can read for the knowledge that you don't have. So Richard Branson about taking the job and find out how to do it, or Elon Musk, do something that is good and enjoying doing it and doing it for the ride, and the rest will follow. So I would say I have heroes that that I assembled to be part of who I want to be, who I work hard and live by. But it wouldn't hurt to have real mentors. But everybody's so busy these days. But read a lot, and you can be inspired a lot. So I would say, if you're serious about self-improvement, read biographies. Because biographies is mentorship in a book that is passed on, inspiring leaders such as Nelson Mandela or George Washington. But one of the books that I enjoy was the founder of Panasonic. And my inspiration from that book was very humbling, but more, I can actually tell you, I've known for 2 decades what I will be doing when I retire. So if you look at your life and you plan out, so I was inspired by Monosuke Matsushita. Is he wanted to help Japan. He wanted to give back to the country. He made a lot of money with Panasonic. And the way he did that was to inspire the next generation of leaders. So he created the Harvard University and Institute for Government and Management and Leadership to inspire the next generation. And long after, 32 years later, one of his students became the Prime Minister of Japan. So this inspiration fuels me in my career progression, knowing that, well, if I want to create the Harvard, the Institute, I want to groom, inspire, enable the future leaders of Vietnam, a country that hasn't given me much. As a born refugee, I left, but that's still my heritage. That's still the way I was brought up. We were only allowed to speak Vietnamese through my entire life at home with my parents. So giving back to a country where Denmark for 23 years have given me a lot more. My personality is very Danish. Is very broad and global. My business career, my professional career has been very Americanized, but I want to give back. So if I want to do that, I need a lot of money, I need a lot of connection, I need a lot of good professors, and to do so, I need to succeed to fulfill that dream of mine, to groom the next leaders of Vietnam, because I do love the country where I was born, even though I only lived there for 5-6 years. So that kind of gives me a lighthouse of where I want to end. So you will find me when I retire as a funny, goofy 3D printing professor teaching about my experiences and to help other kids. That's what I will be doing. So that's my retirement plan.
That sounds like a really good plan. Oh, I also think I have a plan, but it's not fully, I'm still working on it, let's just say so. But I also contemplate sometimes on these kind of things. It's interesting. But you're wearing the Arevo t-shirt. Tell us something about Arevo. What is the team like there, and what's the next big thing for you guys there?
Sure. So I joined Arevo because I think composite has great potential. Is a DED robotic continuous carbon fiber 3D printing provider with the printer, the material, and after 17 years, it became very clear to me that the challenge for the industry of hardware, software, the Achilles heel, the weakness, the bottleneck is the software. Designing for additive, designing making it easier, a more intelligent software, it's been lacking because most of the 3D CAD software was subtractive. But so I believe that the future of 3D printing, it has been much more integrated, so that wouldn't it be nice to have a 3D printing software that is just not only a slicer to do the G-code, to do the extrusion. Wouldn't it be nice to have a software that actually can analyze your subtractive design and use additive stress analysis, FEA analysis, do topology optimization, morph and transform it for that specific 3D printer, for that specific material with that specific setting for surface finish. It doesn't exist today except for Arevo. So the core competence of Arevo is actually the software. And I like 3D printing, I like the software, I like the robotic, because these plus the digital twin, augmented reality that is coming, I think Arevo has a lot of the components that is will be emerging in the fourth industrial revolution. So I hope to inspire people about what composite can do between polymer and metals. So
and you will post about it for sure a lot. You are already. And what about the team at Arevo? How many people are there in your team at Arevo?
We are about 40 people right now, but we are in expansion mode. It's kind of funny. The CEO and I just joined recently this year, and he's also Vietnamese. Sonny Wu was the founder of Misfit Wearables, and he sold it for, I don't know, 250 million to Fossil Watch Group. And so now we're building a huge print farm in Vietnam.
Really?
To be the largest 3D printing print farm in the world, doing continuous carbon fiber to fast track. To answer your question about what COVID has meant to the business, a lot of customers is moving from CapEx to OpEx, so subscription will be the new normal for 3D printing. But even if they don't want to have the equipment, just like AWS storage in the cloud, you don't care who operates the server or where and how, you just want to pay for demand, how much storage you need. So we think that the future will be, if you need composite part, you will get it done. You don't need to own equipment if you don't want to. It will be made for you and shipped to you, and you can do whatever you want. So we are doing continuous carbon fiber print farm in the cloud on demand. So you don't need to use CapEx. If you need 10,000 byte frame next year, you will get it. If you need it next quarter, you will get it. You want to reduce, there's a downturn, people don't like that design, you only need 5,000, we change it down to 5,000, we reduce your capacity. So 3D demand will be the new future.
Sounds very interesting. And I also saw that you're growing the team. So you're also hiring a lot of people in Vietnam, also in the US, and I think you're in California in the US, right? I mean, you are on the East Coast, I know, or no, you're in California now.
No, my wife will never leave Boston. So I've always been in.
You're in Boston now, okay.
But we're in Silicon Valley, where headquarters will be, but the print farm will be in Vietnam.
Okay.
And so imagine, to do all this, you need to grow. So there might be interesting news regarding funding soon.
That's exciting. So with so many other companies out there also recruiting, there's always this this question on candidates' mind, which is, in what sense can you say for sure that you are a good employer? Why should I work for you and not someone else? That's an interesting question. Do you have that already figured out at this stage? I mean, you have your own personal reason why you joined, obviously, but.
So again, with the future will be with the fourth industrial revolution. So I joined Arevo for hopefully the same reason I attract other people, is you want to work with the people, right? That they're interesting, they have different background, interdisciplinary, but it's a cool technology, and I think robotics is super cool. I never worked for a robotics company. I never worked for a company with a lot of software. So it has the ingredients of material science, very powerful software, not just CAD, but also FEA and CAM feature, the tool path. So it has a lot of the interesting component, and the most interesting component is composite is underrated. People don't know about composite. So to grow, and you just need to inspire people and teaching people about composite, it has a lot of growth potential. I was part of inspiring people about metals for the last 6 years of my career with Archem and Desktop Metal. But I'm doing the same for composites. So if you love composite, you want to learn something new, most likely if you're from the industry, you probably have metal and polymer, you don't have composite, and you're not from the industry. Learning composite will actually get you a job later on, because this is a growth area that is growing. Because what is interesting is this is the new vector, the new growth, where composite has been in the past very manually done by hand layout, or you have very thick, thin tape by robots. But Arevo exists in between the mid-size to large part, all full automation with no labor. So moving to automation, robotic, I think that's cool. And if you like to work for a startup and get to do a lot of stuff where there's no boxes, then you will have a lot of fun and you'll get a lot of freedom. I live by, I don't ask for permission, I ask for forgiveness. And people
another good advice.
And I want the people I hire to have the same, because that's how you grow the fastest. But I have to say, in hindsight, I will say I didn't get yelled at that much, because as long as you do what's right for the company ahead of time. For instance, at Desktop Metal, way before we needed a service team, we had already snuck in a service talent to build our service organization. And I gave him the title application trainer, but he had already built a service team before. So doing things without permission, actually I was told not to build up a service team because we haven't shipped yet. But I'm like, we need to build up a team before we ship so we can fix it if we need to. As far as the risk, but I would say a few times when you've done a lot of that and you don't get yelled at, then you know what, you get a little bit more confident, you do more of that. But at some point, you have to be willing to get yelled at, and then you just ask for forgiveness.
Tuan, this has been a great talk. But before we end our episode, I want to ask you if would you like to share something else that I haven't asked about, which you think is important for people to know who are listening or watching us? Sure.
So this morning, I tried to recap some of the highlights or advices. So I have a few bullet points to help other people to think about it. This is very personal. This is what I have chosen to be my guiding principle. Some you might like, some you might not, but I hope they're useful. So here's a few of them. One is dream big. Dream of what you want to do 3-4 jobs from now. Dream very big, having a direction and find a way. Even if you like math, you know there's always an end result. You need to know where you want to go. And there will be many different ways to get there. So dream big, be brave, take risk. If you're hesitant and you don't know when you're ready, the answer is you will never be ready. So Nike says, just do it. Just do it, take the job and learn how to do it. You got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody believe in you? So you got to fake it until you make it. You have to ingrain in yourself as if you're already done the job, that you can do the job. But like a duck, you pedal like crazy underneath. You work hard every evening, learning things that you don't know. Try to have as few regrets as possible, meaning when there's a chance, be brave to say, just do it. As a new project, just volunteer. No matter what, you're going to learn something new. You're going to meet somebody new. So if you learn something, then you never lose. So keep learning. Always share knowledge, but always be a student. If you don't invest in your own career every evening from 8 p.m. to midnight, if you're not spending those 4 hours instead of Netflixing and streaming and watching videos, but if you read executive book summary, SoundView executive summary from the greatest business book or communication book, you're not investing in your career. You have to do your part. I mentioned that already. Don't ask for permission, just do it. Ask for forgiveness later. There will be defining moments in your life that will define you. Meaning there will be moments where you're like, I'm done, I'm gonna quit. those are the moments that will dictate your career progression. You gotta suck it up and bite the bullet and keep doing it. Never give up. Always keep moving. Never give up, but don't stand still. Keep moving. You need momentum. You can never let go of your momentum. Those are the things. But also this one. This is from a Danish CEO that I read. It excel at what you have at hand. So you might have a career dream of being a CEO or something, but whatever your job, you have to excel at hand. Whatever your position is today, you have to excel at each job, at each step. So you want to climb Mount Everest, there are different base camps, there are different steps. There are many ways to get there, but you gotta do the step, you gotta do the work, you gotta do the exercise and practicing. And for networking, and this also relates to leadership, authentic caring. People can tell if you care about them or not. Caring about your colleagues, caring about your coworkers, caring about the team that you lead. It is not about being in charge of your team. It's really taking care of people in your charge. So Simon Sinek is also one of the heroes that I follow regarding leadership. You have to really care, authentic, really care, not pretending. When it's late, when you are tired, but when somebody needs your advice, you are there for them. So those are the few advices I would give that I've learned.
Yeah, I can very much relate to the one you said just now at one of the last ones, that care for your team and not, or be in charge of like some, how was it again? Can you repeat that?
So it's not about being in charge. Leadership is about people that you in your that you're in charge of.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you so much. These are all really very good points, good advices, and I know that you have a story behind every one of them from your experience so far. And yeah, I hope that everyone who's listening or watching us feels that they got some inspiration to move into additive manufacturing or to improve something in what they're doing. Tuan, thank you so much for being here today on the episode. And yeah, we will see each other hopefully soon in person as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.